This happened to a guy named Kyle a few years ago. He'd just gone through a rough breakup, one of those long relationships that ends suddenly and leaves you feeling lost. He needed to get away. So he packed up and moved to a quiet neighborhood just outside of Ottawa, hoping for a fresh start. The place seemed perfect at first. Clean houses, quiet streets, friendly enough neighbors, and a nice view of the forest that stretched out behind the property line. His house was right near the fence on edge of the woods. Peaceful, almost too peaceful. He moved in during the fall. The leaves were turning orange, the air was cool and crisp. It felt like a place where nothing bad ever happened. The first few days were normal. He unpacked, set up his home office, met a few neighbors. Most of them were middle-aged couples or older folks. Everyone seemed polite but a little distant. Kyle chalked it up to small-town culture. He didn't mind. He liked being left alone. There was one thing that stood out, though. Almost every neighbor on his street had a dog, and not small, friendly ones either. Big dogs, German shepherds, Dobermans, huskies. Some were kept in fenced yards, others went on daily walks with their owners. Kyle noticed how serious everyone seemed about their dogs. They weren't playful pets. They were watchful, alert, always scanning the woods. He figured maybe it was a rural thing, coyotes or something. But still, it felt off. One morning, Kyle went for a jog around 6 a.m. It was still a bit dark out, the sun barely rising. As he came around the back of his property, something made him slow down. At the edge of the woods, behind his backyard fence, stood an old woman. She wasn't moving. She just stood there, facing the trees with her back turned toward Kyle. She had long, white hair and was wearing this long gray coat that brushed against the ground. No dog, no flashlight, nothing. Kyle slowed to a stop, feeling uneasy. "Morning," he called out softly. The woman didn't turn around. Didn't move at all. After a few seconds, Kyle just kept jogging, glancing back over his shoulder once. She was still there, still staring into the trees. Later that day, while watering his front yard, he saw his next-door neighbor, Tim, walking his two massive shepherds. Kyle waved him over. "Hey, quick question. Do you know that old lady who hangs out by the woods? I saw her just standing there early this morning." Tim paused. His face changed just for a second. Then he gave a nervous little laugh. "Lady by the woods? No, not really. Probably one of the retirees from up the hill. They walk early." Kyle nodded. "Yeah, just seemed weird." "No dog or anything?" Tim didn't answer. He just gave a half shrug and tugged on the dog's leashes. "Well, welcome to the neighborhood." That night, Kyle couldn't stop thinking about the woman. Something about her posture. The way she just stared at the forest like she was waiting for something. The next morning, he got up early again. Not to jog, just to see if she was there, and she was same spot, same position. Only this time, she turned her head slightly as he watched from the window. She didn't have eyes, at least, not normal ones. Just pale gray circles, almost glowing. In the low light, Kyle backed away from the window, heart racing. He waited a few minutes, then went out back to check. Nothing. She was gone. No footprints. No signs anyone had been there at all. He tried to shake it off. Told himself it was just a trick of the light. Maybe she was a neighbor with cataracts or some weird habit. Nothing to worry about. But that was the beginning. Over the next few days, things started to change, just a little at first. The dogs in the neighborhood barked more at night. Long, drawn-out howls that echoed. Across the street, Kyle started keeping his curtains closed, but the feeling didn't go away. That pressure, like something was watching him. Something waiting at the edge of the trees. And every morning for 3 days straight, the woman was there. Always before sunrise. Always in the same place. Then, on the fourth day, she didn't show up, and Kyle started to think maybe it really was just his imagination. Maybe he was overthinking it. He went on with his day. But that night, just as he was about to go to sleep, he heard a sound, soft, slow scratching at the back door. Asterisk, after a few days, the woman at the edge of the woods stopped showing up. Kyle was relieved at first. Maybe it really had been nothing, just some weird neighbor with a habit of wandering near the trees. He tried to move on, focused on work, even went back to jogging in the mornings. The neighborhood still felt a little strange, but at least she was gone. Then something new started. It began one night just after 2 a.m. Kyle was asleep when he heard a faint noise, soft, steady, and slow. It sounded like something brushing or scratching against the back door. He sat up in bed, not sure if he had dreamed it. It was one of those sounds you can't quite explain, too quiet to be anything serious, but just loud enough to make your heart beat faster. After a few seconds, it stopped. He stayed awake for a while, listening. Nothing. Eventually, he fell back asleep. The next night, it happened again. Scratch. 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 Longer, maybe 10 or 15 seconds. It was gentle, but very deliberate, like something with claws was carefully dragging them across the door. Kyle got out of bed and walked to the kitchen, where the back door was. He turned on the light and pulled aside the curtain. Nothing was there. He unlocked the door and opened it slowly. Cold air rushed in. He stepped out onto the porch and looked around. His backyard was quiet. The woods at the far end stood still and dark. No animals, no people, nothing out of place. But when he looked down, he noticed something that made his skin crawl. There were marks on the bottom of the door. Not deep, just light scratches, but they hadn't been there before. 4 thin lines, repeated, as if something had tried to claw its way in. Kyle stood there for a long time, staring at those scratches. He didn't sleep the rest of the night. The following morning, he told himself it was probably just a raccoon or maybe a stray dog. It was a wooded area after all. These things happen, but deep down something felt wrong. Really wrong. That night, he stayed up late. He kept the lights off and sat in the dark living room with a baseball bat across his lap, just watching the backyard through the glass sliding door. Hours passed. Nothing happened. Then, at exactly 2:37 a.m., the motion light in the backyard flicked on. Something had triggered it. He held his breath and leaned forward, and that's when he saw it. A large black dog stood in the yard, just beyond the light. It wasn't moving. It was just standing there, facing the house. Its fur was matted and dark, almost blending in with the shadows except for its eyes. Its eyes were a dull red, like burning coals buried under ash. Kyle felt frozen in place. Dog didn't growl or bark. It just stared. After a few seconds, it did something that made his stomach drop. It stood up. Not on all fours, but on 2 legs. It rose up like a person, its front legs hanging loosely at its sides. Its head tilted slightly, almost as if it was studying him. Kyle gasped and stepped back. His foot hit a chair and knocked it over with a loud crash. He turned to grab his phone. When he looked back, the yard was empty. The motion light was still on, but the dog was gone. He locked every door and window that night, slept with the bat next to his bed. The next morning, he checked the backyard for tracks. There were none. No paw prints, no broken branches, no signs of anything at all. Just silence. Later that day, he saw his neighbor Tim walking his dogs again. Kyle jogged over and pulled him aside. "Hey, can I ask you something?" Kyle's voice was shaky. "Have you ever seen anything weird around here? Like animals?" Tim looked at him for a second before replying. "What kind of animals?" "I don't know. Big black dog." I think it came into my yard last night. Tim's face changed. Not confused, but serious. Like he already knew what Kyle was going to say. Did it have red eyes? He asked quietly. Kyle nodded. Tim looked around, then leaned in. If I were you, I'd keep your lights on at night. Don't open the door. Ever. Even if you hear scratching. Kyle stared at him. What the hell is that thing? Tim just shook his head. It's not a dog. And with that, he walked away. That night, Kyle didn't sleep, because deep in the silence, sometime around 3 a.m., the scratching came back. But this time, it was louder. Slower. And it didn't stop. Kyle couldn't sleep anymore. Every night, the same thing happened, scratching at the back door, always after 2 a.m. It didn't matter if the lights were on, if the doors were locked, or if he played music to drown it out. The scratching kept coming, always slow, always steady, like it was just waiting to be let in. After the night he saw the black dog stand up on 2 legs, everything changed. He started hearing low growls outside, sometimes footsteps on the porch. Once, something even tapped on his bedroom window at 3 a.m. He lived on the 2nd floor. That's when he knew it wasn't just an animal. It was something else. Something that shouldn't exist. Kyle was terrified, but he also wanted answers. So he bought a set of security cameras and floodlights and installed them around the house. One pointed at the backyard. Another covered the side of the house. He even added a motion sensor by the back door. The first 2 nights, the footage caught nothing. Just leaves blowing in the wind, maybe a raccoon wandering by. But on the 3rd night, something changed. Around 3:07 a.m., one of the backyard cameras activated. Kyle watched the footage the next morning. It started normal. His backyard lit up in soft light from the motion sensor. But then a shadow moved across the grass. It wasn't walking. It glided. The figure was tall. Too tall for a normal dog, and its limbs moved in a slow, unnatural way, almost like it was floating. Kyle paused the footage and zoomed in. That was the first time he got a clear look at its face. It wasn't a full dog face anymore. It had the long snout and black fur. Yes, but its eyes were sunken and red, and its mouth. Its mouth looked too wide, almost split up the sides like the skin had torn. Kyle's chest tightened. He kept watching. The creature paused just in front of the back door. Then it turned and looked directly into the camera. The screen glitched, and the footage cut out. The file was corrupted from that moment on. Kyle sat at his desk for over an hour, just staring at the frozen image on the screen. It had seen him. That same week, strange things started happening around the neighborhood. One morning, Kyle saw police parked outside Tim's house. Tim's dog, one of the big German shepherds, had gone missing overnight. No signs of a break-in, no blood, no tracks. Just gone. The next day, a neighbor named Cheryl found her Labrador dead behind her shed, mauled, torn to pieces, like something wild had gotten to it. Animal control was called. But they had no answers. People in the neighborhood started walking their dogs in pairs. Some even kept them inside at all times, too afraid to let them out alone. Kyle tried to tell himself it was just a coincidence, but deep down he knew. Whatever. He saw that night in his backyard, it was doing this. And it wasn't just after animals died, it was getting bolder. That night, Kyle called Tim. He didn't want to admit he was scared, but he also couldn't handle it alone anymore. Tim answered after a few rings. He sounded tired. Paranoid. Kyle said, I think that thing came back. I caught it on camera this time. There was silence on the line. Then Tim whispered, I think it's happening again. Kyle's heart dropped. What do you mean, again? Tim didn't respond at first. Then he said, it happened before. Years ago, before you moved in. One of the houses here, 3 doors down, it burned down. Guy who lived there had a dog. He kept saying it wasn't acting right, said it was watching. Something in the woods said it stopped listening to him. What happened to him? Kyle asked. Fire. Whole place went up in the middle of the night. Nobody really talks about it, but some of us remember. Kyle felt sick. So what is it? What's out there? Tim lowered his voice. I don't know. But whatever it is, it's not natural. And the dogs, they sense it. That's why so many people on this street have them. Kyle remembered what the old woman in the woods had said. You should have gotten a dog. Later that night, Kyle sat in the dark living room again, baseball bat in hand, eyes fixed on the sliding glass door. At 3:11 a.m. The backyard light turned on. Kyle didn't move. A shape moved in the corner of the yard. This time it wasn't trying to hide. It was standing tall, hunched, eyes burning red. The same creature from the footage. But now it looked different. It was changing. Its limbs were longer, and its face less like a dog, more like something in between. Something wearing the shape of a dog, but wrong in every way. Like a mask stretched over something. Older and hungrier, Kyle backed away from the door. The scratching didn't come this time. Instead, the creature tilted its head. Then it smiled. Kyle's nights had become a nightmare he couldn't escape. The scratching at the back door, the strange growls, the creature gliding in his backyard, it all led to one thing. One night, around 2:30 a.m., Kyle woke up suddenly. The silence was heavy, but something was wrong. His gut told him that whatever had been haunting him wasn't just outside anymore. He heard it again, the scratching. Slow and deliberate. But this time, it was louder, closer. He reached for the baseball bat on the nightstand and crept toward the back of the house. His heart pounded so loudly he thought it might burst. When he reached the sliding glass door, he pulled back the curtain just enough to peek out. There, standing on the porch, was the woman, the old woman from the woods. Only now, she wasn't just standing, she was smiling, and her smile wasn't kind. It was thin, sharp, like a cracked mask. Her eyes were pale gray, clouded, almost glowing in the moonlight. You should have gotten a dog, she whispered. Kyle froze. His breath caught. He wanted to slam the door, to run, to scream, but his body wouldn't listen. She raised a pale, trembling finger and pointed behind him. Kyle slowly turned. That's when he saw it. The creature was inside the house. It wasn't a dog anymore. If it ever was. It stood on two legs, tall and thin, with long, crooked limbs. Its fur was black, but patchy like parts of it were rotting or missing. Its face was a nightmare. Stretched skin, glowing red eyes, and a mouth filled with jagged teeth that didn't belong. It breathed slow and deep, like it was savoring the fear in the air. Kyle stepped back. Banging against the kitchen counter, the creature moved closer. Then, before Kyle could do anything, the woman laughed. A cold, hollow laugh that filled the room. You can't stop it, she said. Kyle's mind raced. What are you? He asked, voice shaking. She looked at him with those empty eyes. I am the warning, the watcher of the woods. The creature growled behind her, a deep, unnatural sound. You ignored me, the woman said. Now it's here. Kyle tried to run, but the creature blocked his path. It lunged forward, jaws snapping. Kyle swung the bat with all his strength. The bat connected with a sickening thud. The creature recoiled but didn't leave. It circled him, stalking. Then it vanished into the shadows. The next morning, Kyle didn't know what to do. His phone was dead. The power flickered on and off all night. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet. Tim came over, looking worried. Kyle, Tim said, I heard noises last night. Barking, screaming. Kyle told him everything. Tim nodded. You were right. It's back. The old woman was never seen again. But the dog, that black, terrible thing, was still out there, sitting on Kyle's porch the next day, watching. Weeks passed. And Kyle finally decided to leave the house. He packed his things and moved far away, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something followed him. That night, in his new apartment, Kyle woke up to scratching at his window. Slow, steady, like claws on glass. He never saw the dog again, but he heard a waiting, and that's the last anyone heard from Kyle. Some say the dog still waits at that old house, guarding the woods. Others say it wanders the neighborhood looking for its next victim. But one thing is certain, you don't want to hear scratching at your door after midnight, because if you do, you might not be alone.